I want to start today by asking you directly a very pointed question. I want you to really just visualize this scenario for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
So if you walked into work tomorrow morning, right, you grab your coffee, your boss sits you down in their office, and they offer you a massive, life-changing raise.
Like a really big bump.
Exactly, say a 50% bump in your salary. Would that money actually make you wealthy? Or, if you are being brutally honest with yourself, would it just make your current bad habits significantly more expensive?
Wow, that is a fascinating and frankly deeply uncomfortable question to frame what we are doing here today.
That kind of stings a little bit, right?
It does, because the reflexive, immediate answer for almost everyone listening is, well, of course it would make me wealthy. I mean, that's the dream, right?
Right. Everyone thinks more money solves the money problem.
Exact. We are culturally conditioned from childhood to believe that a bigger paycheck is, like, the only missing variable in the wealth equation. We think if we just had that higher income, all the stress would just evaporate.
But that's not actually what happens.
No, not at all. The mathematics, and especially the psychological data we're going to look at today, they suggest something entirely different. The reality is that income does not equal wealth.
And that profound disconnect, between making money and actually keeping it, that is the central mission of today's deep dive.
It's what we really need to unpack.
Yeah. We are unpacking a comprehensive, and I mean incredibly detailed, curriculum sourced directly from the educational platform, the Growth Vault.
Which is such a great source for this.
It really is. Specifically, we are focusing on a framework they call the Money Growth Ladder. Our goal over this session is to outline a step-by-step structural system.
A literal ladder.
Right. We want to look at how someone transitions from living paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed about the next unexpected bill, to actively creating multiple income streams.
And crucially, converting those streams into true, repeatable wealth.
Yes, exactly. But right at the top, we need to set the tone and be explicitly clear about what this deep dive is.
And perhaps more importantly, what it isn't.
Right, because there's a lot of garbage out there.
So much. The sources from the Growth Vault are rooted strictly in educational finance. I mean, this is not personal financial advice tailored to your specific situation.
Definitely not.
And if you are tuning in right now hoping for, like, a get-rich-quick scheme or some secret crypto trading loophole.
Or a real estate hack that promises to make you a multimillionaire by next Tuesday while you sleep.
Yeah, if that's you, you are in the wrong place. There is absolutely no hype here. What we are going to explore is the unglamorous, foundational, and sometimes remarkably boring mathematics of building real assets over time.
It's the stuff that actually works, even if it's boring. We're going to give you the blueprint today.
Step by step.
So, the structural ladder we're going to climb together today covers a lot of ground. We're going to look at how to stop financial leaks, how to build a buffer of cash to protect yourself, and starving out the high-interest debt that's dragging you down.
And then we get to the fun part.
Oh yeah, the fun part. Actually monetizing a skill you already possess. Validating that skill so you don't waste months of your life, converting that new cash flow into protective assets, and finally reinvesting it all to build an automated wealth engine.
It is a logical, sequential progression. I mean, the entire premise of the ladder is that you cannot jump to the final step without mastering the foundation.
You have to do it in order.
Right. You can't start investing heavily if you are bleeding cash from like a dozen invisible subscriptions. Which brings us right back to your opening question about the trap of simply making more money.
Let's dive into that, because there is this dangerous, pervasive myth that earning more automatically equates to building wealth.
But the sources point out a startling reality. For the vast majority of people, if they get a raise that gives them an extra $300 a month, that money simply vanishes.
It just completely vanishes into the ether.
Within about 6 months, usually. They're making more on paper, their taxes might even be a little higher, but their day-to-day existence feels exactly the same.
They feel the exact same amount of financial pressure they felt before the raise.
Yep.
Okay, let's really unpack this, because it sort of defies common sense, right?
Intuitively, yeah.
Like, intuitively, an extra $300 a month should create exactly $300 of breathing room in your budget.
You'd think so.
You should be able to take that cash, put it in a savings account, and watch it grow. But it just doesn't happen. Why does it vanish?
It vanishes because of a hidden, nearly silent psychological force called lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep.
Yes. When you earn more money, Your baseline expectation for what you consider a necessity naturally and automatically expands to consume every single new dollar available to you.
Just fills the space.
It does. It completely fills the vacuum. And the reason it's so insidious is because it rarely happens with one giant, irresponsible, headline-making purchase.
You aren't buying a private jet.
Right. You don't get a $300 raise and immediately go buy a yacht. It happens in the margins.
Like little things.
Exactly. It's upgrading from the generic brand of coffee you've been drinking for years to the premium artisanal beans because, well, you tell yourself you've earned it.
Oh, I've definitely done that.
Or it's financing the newest model of a smartphone simply because your perfectly functional 3-year-old phone feels slightly slow when loading an app.
Right. Your brain subtly, like imperceptibly, shifts the goalposts of your lifestyle.
That's a perfect way to put it.
I can completely relate to this. I remember when I got my first real salary bump years ago. I had been driving this incredibly reliable older Honda Civic.
Classic reliable car.
Totally. It ran perfectly.
Yeah.
But the moment that new salary hit my account, I suddenly convinced myself that the Civic was like a safety hazard.
Oh, wow. A safety hazard.
Yeah. It was like, I urgently need to lease a midsize SUV.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, the raise was eaten by a new $150 car payment, maybe $50 more in takeout a week, and a slightly nicer pair of shoes.
And poof.
And poof. I was right back to living paycheck to paycheck, just at a slightly higher aesthetic level.
That is the textbook definition of the phenomenon. And the sources from the Growth Vault provide a highly specific psychological exercise to combat this exact acclimatization.
What's the exercise?
They call it the 2 lists technique. And the physical act of writing this down is incredibly important. You literally take a piece of paper and draw a line right down the middle.
Old school.
Very old school. On the left side, you write your upgrades list. On the right side, you write your freedom list.
Okay, I think I see where this is going. The upgrades list has to be all the shiny stuff, right?
Yeah.
The immediate comforts, like the massive flat screen TV, the designer clothes, the luxury car lease we just talked about. It's the stuff that makes your day-to-day life slightly nicer right now.
That's it. It's purely about consumption. And the freedom list on the right side is entirely different.
What goes on that side?
This list is populated by things that literally buy your future self more options and more time.
Oh, I like that.
It's a massive cash reserve that gives you the leverage to walk away from a toxic boss without panicking. Or it's paying off a suffocating credit card so that monthly payment stays in your pocket.
Right.
It's investing aggressively into index funds so you can reclaim your time and retire a decade early. The sources argue that lifestyle creep completely takes over your life when your upgrades list is 3 pages long, meticulously detailed, and constantly updated, while your freedom list is completely blank.
But I want to push back on this a little bit because I know what a lot of people listening are thinking right now.
Go for it.
If someone works incredibly hard, puts in the overtime, grinds for that promotion,
Right.
shouldn't they be allowed to enjoy their money? Are we saying that to build wealth, you have to live a life of complete austerity, like sitting in a dark, unheated apartment eating plain rice and beans for 10 years?
That is a massive and very common misconception about financial discipline. I'm glad you brought that up.
Because it sounds miserable.
It does sound miserable. And the goal of this financial system is absolutely not to eliminate joy from your existence. You are fully entitled to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Okay, good.
But we have to look deeper at what enjoyment actually means. The synthesis here is that the goal is making sure your enjoyment isn't coded in the nauseating underlying anxiety of not being able to cover your rent next week.
Wow. The stress ruins the purchase?
Completely. Think about it. When you buy a deeply expensive, nice dinner to celebrate, but the transaction is immediately followed by a wave of panic because you know your checking account is hovering near zero.
That's the worst feeling.
It really is.
Yeah.
That isn't genuine joy. You are paying premium prices for an experience that is entirely ruined by stress. The 2-list technique doesn't say you can't ever have the upgrade.
Right.
It simply forces you to prioritize the freedom list so that when you do buy the upgrade, you can actually enjoy it without that sinking feeling in your stomach.
That makes total sense. It's about making the money visible and intentional. And that philosophy leads perfectly into the very foundation of the ladder we're climbing today. Before we can build wealth, we have to stop the bleeding.
Step 1.
Right. The sources talk about this concept of invisible money and how it creates a deeply psychological trap called the shame loop. What exactly is happening in our brains there?
Oh, the shame loop. It is a brutal psychological cycle that prevents millions of people from ever taking control of their finances. It starts with avoidance.
Like, just not looking.
Yes. When we know we've been spending more than we should, we actively avoid looking at our bank balances. And during that period of avoidance, our anxiety magnifies.
It just builds and builds.
We naturally build up an expectation that we are going to find something catastrophic. We tell ourselves that if we actually look at the statements, we'll discover we've made some massive life-ruining mistake that proves we are fundamentally terrible with money.
So to avoid confronting that overwhelming feeling of shame and failure, we just refuse to open the banking app.
Exactly.
We delete the emails from the bank without reading them. I've been there. Most people have.
But by refusing to look, we allow all these tiny invisible leaks to keep draining us. The late fees, the unused gym memberships, the streaming services we haven't watched in months, the impulse buys.
All of it.
We're literally bleeding out from 1,000 paper cuts because we refuse to look at the wound.
That's the trap. To break out of it, the sources suggest an intervention that sounds a bit intimidating at first, called the 24-hour money reset.
How does that work?
The first phase is entirely about raw observation. You sit down, pull up every single financial account you have, checking, savings, credit cards, PayPal, everything.
Okay.
And you document every transaction that came in and went out over the last 30 days. And the absolutely vital, non-negotiable rule here is that you must do this impartially, with absolutely zero judgment.
So if I'm doing this reset, and I'm staring at a massive list of overpriced coffee receipts and random midnight online purchases, I shouldn't be beating myself up about it.
You cannot beat yourself up. You have to detach.
That's hard to do. It is very hard. But in this moment, you are not a judge handing down a punitive sentence. You are merely an auditor collecting facts. You are a scientist observing data.
Okay, so I have the raw data. I've got this massive spreadsheet or piece of paper with 30 days of transactions. What do I do with it?
You sort them into 3 specific buckets.
Buckets, okay.
The first bucket is survival. These are your absolute non-negotiables. Housing, utilities, basic groceries, essential transportation to get to work.
Things you need to live.
Right. If you don't pay these, your life actively falls apart.
And the second bucket.
The second bucket is growth. This is money spent on things like education, essential business tools, or fundamental health.
Like going to the dentist or buying a course.
Exactly. This is capital deployed to make you stronger, smarter, or to directly improve your earning potential.
Which leaves the third bucket, and I'm guessing this is where the problem lies.
Yes. The third bucket is leakage. And notice they're very intentional with that word. The sources don't call it fun money or entertainment.
Because it's not actually fun.
Right. Leakage is the money spent on things that often don't even bring you genuine happiness or utility. It's the impulse buys at the gas station checkout line, the forgotten app subscriptions that auto-renew, the late fees because you forgot to transfer funds.
It's just wasted capital.
It is capital that vanished without materially improving your life or moving you closer to your goals.
I was really struck by how the sources address why these leaks happen so easily in the modern world. It's because of frictionless spending.
Oh, absolutely.
Technology literally engineers us to spend money when we are at our most vulnerable and exhausted.
The behavioral science behind it is incredible and honestly a little terrifying.
It really is.
Think about your state of mind at 7 o'clock at night after a grueling day of work, dealing with a difficult boss, and surviving a terrible commute.
You're just dead.
Your willpower battery is completely depleted. Psychologists call it decision fatigue.
You just want comfort.
Exactly. And if a food delivery app is sitting right there on your phone's home screen and your credit card is already securely saved in their system, you can order a $40 meal with 3 taps of your thumb.
So fast.
It takes 3 seconds flat. The transaction is completely frictionless. Your rational, forward-thinking brain has absolutely no time to intervene and say, hey, wait a minute, we have food in the fridge.
So how do we fight back against an app that's engineered by thousands of smart people to separate us from our money?
The countermeasure is deliberately introducing environmental friction.
Environmental friction.
You have to make it annoying to spend money. You delete the delivery apps from your phone. You log into your favorite online retailers, and you manually scrub your saved 16-digit credit card numbers from their databases.
Oh, that sounds so inconvenient, which I guess is the entire point.
It is the entire point. If you have to physically get off the comfortable couch, walk into the other room, dig through your coat pocket to find your physical wallet, pull out the card,
and manually type it all in.
and manually type in a 16-digit number, the expiration date, and the CVV code. You are giving your tired brain a mandatory 3-minute buffer zone.
It's like a speed bump for your impulses.
Exactly. During that annoying data entry process, your rational brain has a chance to wake up and ask, is this lukewarm, overpriced takeout really worth an hour and a half of my wages? Or should I just go boil some pasta and save the $40?
You give yourself a choice.
You are structurally protecting yourself from your own exhaustion.
I love that framing. So once you introduce that friction and plug those leaks, you start naturally accumulating cash that used to just evaporate.
That's the goal.
And the latter dictates that this newly retained cash must immediately be deployed to build a buffer. But the sources provide a phenomenal mental reframe here. They tell the reader to stop calling it an emergency fund and start calling it self-insurance. Why the distinction?
Because language dictates behavior. Emergency fund is a vague term. It's nebulous.
It could mean anything.
Right. What constitutes an emergency? Is a sale on a television an emergency? Some people might convince themselves it is.
I've definitely tried to convince myself of that.
We all have. But self-insurance carries psychological weight. You gladly pay monthly premiums to an insurance company to protect your car against a crash or your home against a fire.
True.
This buffer is you actively insuring yourself against the inevitable, chaotic reality of life. You are buying a policy against the water heater exploding at 3 in the morning, or your boss suddenly pulling you into a room and cutting your hours in half.
But for the self-insurance to actually protect you, you have to be absolutely rigid about when you are allowed to tap into it.
Absolutely rigid.
The guides lay out 3 non-negotiable rules for using this money. An expense must be unexpected, it must be urgent, it must be necessary. All 3 boxes must be checked.
This often trips people up, so it's worth running a scenario to test those definitions.
Let's do it.
Let's say your annual car registration is due next week, and it's a couple $100. It is absolutely necessary to drive legally. It is urgent because it's due next week, and you'll get a ticket if you don't pay it. But is it unexpected?
Absolutely not. You knew it was coming for a full year. The date doesn't change.
Right. Therefore, rating your self-insurance to pay for that car registration is a violation of the system. That should have been budgeted for in your normal monthly expenses.
Okay, let me throw another one at you.
Let's hear it.
You get an email alert for a massive 24-hour flash sale on flights to Vegas for a weekend trip. It's totally unexpected. You didn't know the sale was happening.
Okay.
It's urgent because the countdown timer says the sale ends at midnight tonight. But is it necessary for your survival?
Obviously not, so it fails the test. The self-insurance is exclusively for the transmission violently dropping out of your car while you're driving on the highway, or a medical bill you couldn't have foreseen.
Right.
It is not a slush fund for poor planning or exciting opportunities.
So the obvious question for someone just starting this journey is, how do we generate the initial cash to fund this self-insurance without needing to go beg our boss for a raise?
The sources provide 4 highly actionable methods to extract hidden cash from your existing income.
Let's go through them.
The first is simply the 1-week observation audit. You commit to tracking every single penny you spend for 7 days. You write it down in a notebook.
Okay.
What's fascinating is the Hawthorne effect. The mere act of observation alters behavior. People naturally spend less just because they are paying attention to the outflow.
Just the annoyance of having to write down $3 for a soda makes you not buy the soda.
Exactly. The second method relies on technology, but in a positive way. It's the automated app roundup method.
I love those apps.
They are brilliant because they operate invisibly. You link a service to your checking account, and every time you make a purchase, say a coffee for $3.60, the app automatically rounds up to the nearest dollar and sweeps that spare 40 cents into a separate savings account.
It's painless.
You don't feel the loss of 40 cents in your daily life, but over weeks and months, it builds significant momentum.
I've used those apps, and it genuinely feels like finding free money when you check the balance after a few months. What's the third method?
The third is aggressive bill negotiation. People assume their recurring bills are fixed, but they often aren't.
Like internet or phone bills.
Exactly. You pick one monthly bill, like your internet provider. You spend 5 minutes finding a competitor's promotional rate. Then you call your provider's retention department.
And what do you say?
You politely but firmly tell them you are leaving for the competitor unless they match the rate. And then, this is the critical psychological part, you embrace the awkward silence.
You just stop talking.
You stop talking. Humans hate dead air on a phone call. We want to fill it. But you have to force them to break the silence and counteroffer.
That's brilliant.
If they blink and drop your bill by $20 a month, you don't just absorb that savings into your lifestyle. You immediately set up an automatic transfer to send that exact $20 into your self-insurance every single month. You capture the savings.
And the fourth method.
It's a 30-day spending fast. You pick one specific discretionary category, like buying lunch at work or ordering clothes online, and you brutally cut it to absolute zero for 1 month.
Just cold turkey.
It's a temporary, intense sprint to shovel cash into the buffer. More importantly, it proves to yourself that you have the discipline to survive without that comfort.
Okay, so we stopped the bleeding and we've scraped together a self-insurance buffer. We are finally feeling a little bit of security.
But we aren't done.
No, because here, the latter forces us to confront a harsh mathematical reality. Building a cash buffer is fundamentally useless if you have a reverse compounding engine actively draining your net worth in the background.
This is a huge pivot. We have to transition from building savings to going on the offensive against high-interest consumer debt.
Primarily credit cards.
Yes. And to understand why this specific type of debt is so destructive, we have to pull back the curtain and break down the terrifying mathematics of how lending actually works. It's all based on a foundational financial concept called the spread.
Because banks aren't charities. They are highly optimized profit machines.
Exactly. A bank doesn't just hold its own money. It borrows money from the broader financial market or from the deposits of its customers at relatively low interest rates, let's say 5%.
Okay.
They then turn around and lend that exact same capital out to you via a sleek, shiny credit card, but they charge you 24%.
Wow.
That massive gap, the difference between the 5% they pay and the 24% they charge you, is the spread. That is their profit margin. And because it is so incredibly lucrative, they have designed the entire credit card system to keep you paying interest for as long as mathematically possible.
And the most vicious tool they use to keep you trapped is daily compounding. I think most people, when they hear their card has a 24% annual interest rate, they assume the bank calculates that interest once a year.
Yeah.
But credit cards weaponize time against you.
They absolutely do. Every single night while you are sleeping, the bank's algorithm takes that massive annual rate, divides it by 365 to get a daily rate, and applies that fraction of interest to your total outstanding balance.
While you sleep.
While you sleep. Your debt grows slightly larger every single day. It never stops. Weekends, holidays, it doesn't matter.
To illustrate how paralyzing this is, the sources present a hypothetical case study of Jane. Jane has a credit card with a $7,000 balance at a 23.99% interest rate.
Very typical scenario.
Right. She is trying to be a responsible adult, so she looks at her statement, sees the bank's minimum payment due of 3%, and she pays it diligently every month.
Which is exactly what the bank hopes she will do.
The math here is just tragic. I have to use an analogy because numbers on a page don't do it justice. Paying that 3% minimum balance is exactly like trying to empty a massive swimming pool using a tiny plastic teaspoon, while someone else is standing at the deep end running an industrial garden hose full blast into the pool.
That is painfully accurate. Let's look at what actually happens when Jane sends in that minimum payment. Almost all of that money is instantly devoured by the bank to pay off the newly generated daily interest from the previous 30 days.
So the actual debt doesn't move.
Barely at all. Her actual principal, the original $7,000 she borrowed, barely shrinks. It might go down by $10 or $20. The next month, the bank applies that massive interest rate to almost the exact same high balance. The system is perfectly engineered to swallow a portion of her future income indefinitely.
So how do you fight back against a machine that's designed by financial engineers to trap you? You have to systematically starve the snowball.
The counterattack must be deliberate and aggressive. The very first rule is that you completely ignore the bank's minimum Kittleman suggestions.
Just ignore them completely.
Yes. Those numbers are designed for their benefit, not yours. You calculate a higher fixed payment amount that guarantees you are vaulting over the newly generated interest, ensuring you are surgically striking the principal balance every single month.
You also have to disrupt their algorithm. If they are compounding daily, you shouldn't wait 30 days to pay them. You can make weekly micropayments.
Weekly payments are great.
Every time you throw $50 at the balance on a Tuesday mid-month, you knock down the principal before it has the time to generate as much compounding friction against you over the rest of the month. You interrupt their compounding cycle.
But what happens when you have multiple debts? A car loan, 3 credit cards, a personal loan. You need a unified strategy to organize your attack.
Right.
The sources contrast two primary methods that are heavily debated in personal finance: the avalanche method and the snowball method.
Let's start with avalanche, because mathematically it seems like the obvious choice.
From a pure robotic mathematical standpoint, the avalanche method is absolutely superior. You list all your debts, find the one with the absolute highest interest rate, and you attack it with every single spare dollar you have while paying only the minimums on the rest.
Makes sense.
Once that's gone, you move to the next highest rate. This mathematically saves you the most money in interest and clears the overall debt the fastest.
But the sources from the growth vault actually advocate heavily for the snowball method instead. Why choose a mathematically inferior strategy?
Because they understand that personal finance is largely behavioral, not just mathematical. If we were robots, Avalanche would win every time. But we are emotional creatures.
We need motivation.
Exactly. With the snowball method, you list your debts from smallest total balance to largest, completely ignoring the interest rates. You attack the debt with the smallest overall balance first.
So maybe it's a $300 medical bill, even if it has no interest.
Exactly. You attack it, you pay it off quickly, and you experience a massive, sudden psychological win. You actually see an account balance hit zero. You get an email saying account closed.
Oh, that feels so good.
It does. That dopamine hit gives you the emotional momentum and the tangible proof required to sustain a grueling, multi-year debt payoff journey. You are managing your psychology, which is almost always more critical than optimizing the math.
Right, because if you try the avalanche method on a massive debt,
You might grind for a year and feel like you've made no visible progress, which causes most people to give up and revert to bad habits.
okay, let's assume the listener has done the hard work. We've stopped the leaks, we've built the self-insurance buffer, and we've starved the high-interest debt down to absolute zero.
The baseline.
We are finally at baseline. We've reached the point where we can start building wealth. But here, I have to point out a fundamental, logical limit to everything we've discussed so far. I call it the floor of frugality.
The floor of frugality. I like that.
You can cut your budget, you can clip coupons, you can negotiate your internet bill, you can stop buying lattes. But you can only cut your expenses down to a baseline of zero. And practically speaking, you can't even get to zero because you have to eat and pay rent. To build massive wealth, eventually, optimizing the budget isn't enough. You need a bigger shovel. You need more income.
That is the pivotal realization in any wealth-building journey. Frugality has a mathematical floor, but income has an infinite ceiling. You cannot save your way to millions if you only make $30,000 a year.
It's just not possible.
Which brings us to the concept of the $0 startup and the art of monetizing skills. But before we get into the how, we first have to dismantle a culturally ingrained myth that paralyzes almost all potential entrepreneurs before they even start.
You're talking about the "I need money to make money" excuse.
Yes. We are taught by media and culture that starting a business requires massive venture capital funding, signing a terrifying 5-year commercial lease for a storefront, or buying a warehouse full of risky inventory from overseas.
Like you need a Shark Tank pitch.
Right. People think if they don't have $50,000 in the bank, they can't start a business.
But historical reality proves otherwise. The sources use some amazing examples. Look at Craigslist.
A huge one.
It is a massive enterprise now. But it didn't start with millions in funding. It started as a completely free, simple email list sent between a few friends in San Francisco sharing events.
Just an email list.
WordPress powers a huge chunk of the internet, but it was just a clunky side project coded by a guy who wanted a slightly better way to publish his personal blog. MailChimp was just a side tool built by a web design agency to email their own clients because existing tools were too expensive.
None of these started with massive capital.
None of them. They started by solving a specific, annoying problem with the tools they already possessed.
So how does someone listening today replicate that model? The answer is monetizing invisible skills. You sell a service based entirely on what you already know how to do. You don't buy physical inventory, you package your competence. The guides use a very accessible example, becoming a virtual assistant.
Walk us through how that actually looks in practice.
Let's say you are naturally highly organized. You manage your family's complex calendar effortlessly. You can go on a platform like LinkedIn, find a busy, overwhelmed executive or small business owner, and offer to relentlessly manage and filter their chaotic email inbox.
Okay.
You propose working just 5 hours a week at $30 an hour, That executive gets their sanity back, and you just generated $600 a month in pure profit with absolutely zero financial startup costs. Your only inventory is your time and your organizational skill.
That's a great starting point. But the sources then introduce a highly scalable, high-margin evolution of this concept, something they call service arbitrage or drop servicing. This is where the playbook gets incredibly sophisticated, and I want to spend some time here.
Drop servicing is fascinating. Essentially, you are acting as the intelligent bridge between localized demand and global supply. You are connecting a problem in your immediate vicinity with a solution somewhere else in the world.
I love the specific example they use for this. Let's really role play this out.
Let's do it.
You are walking down the street in your town, and you notice a local landscaping company. They are clearly successful. They have wrap trucks, they have crews working, they obviously have paying clients. But out of curiosity, you look up their website on your phone, and it looks like it was built in 1998.
Oh, we've all seen those websites.
The text is tiny, the images are broken, and it is completely unreadable on a mobile device.
They are losing business, and they might not even know it.
Exactly. So you walk into their office, and you pitch the owner a $1,500 modern website overhaul. You don't talk about coding, you sell the vision of how much business they are losing because potential clients can't figure out how to call them from their smartphones.
Focus on the pain point.
Right.
Yeah.
The owner agrees, shakes your hand, and signs a contract for $1,500.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker for the listener. You don't actually know how to write a single line of website code. You don't know HTML, CSS, nothing.
Right. And you don't need to learn. Instead of spending 6 months learning to code and building it yourself, you take that newly signed $1,500 contract, go to a global freelance platform like Upwork or Fiverr, and you hire a highly talented, vetted web developer who lives in a lower cost of living area.
You outsource it.
You hire them to build the site to your exact specifications for $700. You manage the project, you ensure the quality is excellent, you deliver the finished website to the local landscaper, and you keep the $800 margin as pure profit.
Okay, I have to pause and push back here because I know exactly what a skeptical listener is thinking.
I know what you're going to say.
Wait a minute, isn't that just being a parasitic middleman? Why on earth wouldn't the landscaper just go on Upwork himself, find the exact same developer, and pay $700 directly? Why is he paying you $1,500? Are you scamming him?
That is the most common and crucial objection people have to this model, but it fundamentally misunderstands how real business owners value their time. Let's look at the landscaper. He is an expert at running crews, sourcing fertilizer, fixing broken mowers, and managing local logistics. He is incredibly busy.
He's working outside all day.
Exactly. He does not have the time, the technical vocabulary, or the desire to create an account on a global freelance platform, write a technical job description, sift through 500 portfolios from developers in 8 different time zones, conduct interviews over Zoom at strange hours, and meticulously project manage software development to ensure the site actually works.
If he tries to do it himself, it's going to be a nightmare for him.
Exactly. You aren't just selling lines of code, you are selling convenience and execution. You are providing curation, trust, and project management. You are taking a complex, frustrating problem completely off his plate.
You're absorbing the headache.
You are absorbing all the friction of the process so the business owner doesn't have to. That absorption of friction, that guarantee that the job will just get done without him having to stress about it, is exactly what justifies your $800 profit margin. It is a mutually beneficial value exchange.
That makes a lot of sense. You are the project manager. But before anyone listening rushes out right now to pitch a $1,500 website or design a logo for their new drop servicing agency, we have to look at the next crucial phase, because the sources hit us with a very tragic, very real warning. 42% of all startups completely fail.
That is a staggering number.
And it's not because they run out of money or because their team fights. Why do they fail?
Because they build something that absolutely no one wants to buy. It is the ultimate tragedy of entrepreneurship. Spending 6 months in your basement, burning your savings, ignoring your family, to build the perfect, flawless solution to a problem that doesn't actually exist in the real marketplace.
To prevent that heartbreak, the guides outline a rigorous, non-negotiable validation process. You have to prove demand before you spend a single dime on logos, websites, or business cards.
The validation process is structured in 4 distinct phases. Step 1 is clarity. You have to define the exact customer pain point in one single sentence.
One sentence.
If you can't articulate the problem simply, you don't understand it. And crucially, Don't talk about your product's features, talk exclusively about their pain.
Give me an example of that.
Instead of saying, I am building an AI-driven calendar optimization tool, you say, freelancers lose 3 hours a week playing email ping pong trying to schedule client meetings, and it drives them crazy. You are validating the pain, not the tool.
Okay, that leads to step 2, which is where I think most people freeze. You have to actually talk to potential customers face-to-face or voice-to-voice. You can't just run a generic Twitter poll. You have to look someone in the eye and ask them about their problem.
People freeze because of fear, and it usually manifests in a very specific, ego-driven way.
This is so interesting because I hear this all the time. People are terrified of this step. They sit in their rooms thinking, I can't talk to anyone. If I go out and tell people my brilliant revolutionary business idea, someone is going to steal it and get rich without me.
That is the ultimate amateur fear. The harsh reality that the expert sources impart is that absolutely nobody cares enough about your unproven idea to steal it.
Everyone is busy.
Everyone is too busy worrying about their own lives. Ideation, coming up with a concept in the shower, is incredibly easy. Execution, waking up at 5 a.m. to build it, dealing with angry clients, managing cash flow, is 1,000 times harder.
No one wants to steal your hard work.
Exactly. The true, genuine risk is not having your idea stolen. The true risk is letting your ego convince you to hide, to build a product in total silence for 6 months, only to finally launch it to a world that responds with absolute, deafening crickets.
That's the real nightmare.
Negative feedback during the validation phase is a gift. If someone tells you your idea is stupid on day 3, they just saved you years of wasted effort.
Which leads to step 3 of validation. Check the competition. Now, normally, when an aspiring entrepreneur does a Google search and finds out someone else is already doing their idea, they get depressed, close their laptop, and quit. But the sources say you should actually celebrate. Why?
Because finding active competition mathematically proves that a paying market for your service already exists.
Oh, right.
The demand is real enough that another business is surviving on it. You don't have to spend years educating the market that a problem exists. The competition already did that. You just have to figure out how to do it 10% better, faster, or target a slightly different niche. No competition is usually a massive red flag that there is no money to be made.
And finally, step 4. Get a tangible commitment. You don't necessarily need cash upfront to validate, though that is the gold standard. But if you can explain your solution to a target customer, and they are willing to hand over their primary email address to be notified when you launch, or if they sign a letter of intent, that is a powerful sign of tangible interest. They have skin in the game.
So let's look at where we are on the ladder. You've validated the idea, the side hustle is up and running, the landscaping websites are being built, and suddenly, new money is finally flowing into your life. You are generating real cash flow outside of your day job.
Which is awesome.
But this introduces a completely new, dangerous problem: the trap of new money.
Yes, because once that side hustle cash hits your checking account and you see an extra $800 sitting there, the greatest risk is letting that hard-earned surplus dissolve straight back into your upgrades list that we talked about earlier.
It's so tempting.
If you make an extra $800 from drop servicing and immediately go out and lease a nicer car, you have completely defeated the purpose of the entire exercise. You were just spinning the hamster wheel faster.
To combat this impulse, the sources recommend implementing the split system. You create a rigid mathematical rule to split your new income the very second it arrives, before your emotions or desires get involved. You pre-decide the destiny of the dollar.
So what does a typical split look like?
A common framework is 50, 30, 20. The moment you get paid, 50% automatically goes to attacking remaining debt or buying investments. That is your core wealth building.
Okay, the 50 is for wealth.
30% goes into a stability bucket. This is crucial for business owners. It covers your taxes and operating costs so you aren't caught off guard. And 20% goes toward lifestyle upgrades or learning new skills. You are allowed to enjoy some of the money, but it is structurally contained.
I want to highlight that 10% stability bucket because the sources get into the boring administrative reality of entrepreneurship here. And it is so important. Ignoring the legal and tax structures of your new side hustle can completely obliterate the wealth you are trying to build. You have to understand the difference between operating as a sole trader versus operating as a company.
This is where so many people ruin their financial lives. A sole trader is the easiest way to start. It's like being a one-person band. You just start selling things. But the massive downside is that your personal assets and your business liabilities are deeply intertwined. In fact, legally, there is no difference between you and the business.
Which means your personal assets are completely exposed. If your business accidentally causes damage, say the website you built for the landscaper crashes and deletes his customer database, and he sues you, lawyers can come directly after your personal savings or force the sale of your personal car to pay the damages.
Exactly. A company, or an LLC depending on your jurisdiction, operates entirely differently. It is a fictional legal entity created by the state. It provides a protective shell, a firewall between the business's liabilities and your personal assets. If the company gets sued, generally speaking, they can only take the assets owned by the company, not your personal home.
And beyond the legal structure, there is the massive hidden danger of taxation. When you are an employee, the government takes their cut before you even see your paycheck. But when you are a business owner, they give you all the money and trust you to pay them later. The sources use a great example of the $60,000 GST rule in New Zealand to illustrate this trap.
Yes, the goods and services tax threshold. Every country or state has a variation of this. In this example, if your side hustle revenue crosses $60,000 in a year, you are legally required to start charging your clients an extra percentage for sales tax and then remit that tax to the government.
But what if you don't know the rule? What if your side hustle accidentally crosses that threshold in November and you haven't been actively collecting that extra sales tax from your clients all year?
The government's stance is incredibly simple. Ignorance is not an excuse. They do not care that you didn't know the law. You will be hit with a catastrophic tax bill at the end of the year, calculated on your entire revenue that you completely failed to budget for.
That's terrifying.
That bill can wipe out your entire year's profit in a single day. You have to handle the boring paperwork early so it doesn't destroy you later.
Okay, so we've navigated the legal landmines, our cash flow is secured, our side hustle is structured safely, and our split system is pushing surplus cash toward investments. We have finally reached the peak of the mountain. We are ready to reinvest into the compounding engine.
The best part.
Let's talk about the true, awe-inspiring power of compound interest. I want to bring back that snowball analogy we touched on earlier because the visualization is perfect.
It is the best mechanical visualization we have. Let's compare simple interest to compound interest. Simple interest is like rolling a tightly packed snowball down a long hill, but the snowball never gets any bigger. It just gathers the exact same tiny amount of snow on every rotation. The growth is linear and agonizingly slow. If you earn $10 in interest this year, you earn $10 next year. Forever.
But compound interest physically expands the surface area of the snowball.
Exactly. On the first few rotations, it picks up new snow, just like simple interest. But as it rolls, the snowball grows larger. That expanded surface area means on the next rotation, it is gathering new snow. PLUS, gathering snow on top of the snow it just picked up a second ago.
It's exponential.
The growth becomes exponential. You are earning interest on your initial principal, plus earning interest on all your previously earned interest.
And what's fascinating here is how the sources dive into the microscopic math regarding the friction of frequency. They compare an investment compounding quarterly, meaning 4 times a year, versus one compounding monthly. At first glance, looking at the numbers, the difference seems completely ridiculous to worry about.
Because it's so small.
Right. On a $10,000 investment over 3 years, monthly compounding might only earn you an extra $5 compared to quarterly compounding.
Most people look at that and say, why would I spend time optimizing my accounts just to earn an extra $5 over 3 years? It's not worth the effort.
So why on earth should the listener care? Why fight for a $5 difference?
Because you have to zoom out and look at the lifespan of your wealth. That $5 difference in the short term represents massive structural efficiency in the long term. When your interest is applied monthly, that tiny bit of new money is locked into the core of the snowball and starts earning its own interest 60 days sooner than if it were applied quarterly.
It's working faster.
Exactly. If you stretch that exact same microscopic efficiency over 40 years of consistent investing, contributing hundreds of thousands of dollars over your career, that tiny friction of frequency alters your final net worth not by $5, but by tens of thousands of dollars. Optimizing the structure early pays massive dividends later.
And that perfectly sets up the irreplaceable fuel of the entire compounding engine. It's not the interest rate, and it's not the amount you contribute. The ultimate fuel is time.
Time is everything.
The sources provide a jaw-dropping mathematical case study of two investors, Sam and Alex, that proves this definitively. Let's look at the math because it blew my mind.
Let's hear it.
Sam decides to start investing $2,000 a year at age 25. Alex decides he wants to enjoy his 20s, wait until he is more settled, and get a better job first. He delays for exactly 1 decade. He starts investing the exact same amount, $2,000 a year at age 35.
Assuming they both invest in the same index funds, get the exact same 5% annual return, and both stop investing at age 65, the final difference is staggering. Sam, simply by starting at 25, finishes with over $241,000.
And Alex?
Alex, despite aggressively investing the exact same annual amount for 30 years, finishes with roughly $132,000.
A mere 10-year delay mathematically cuts his final net worth entirely in half. He lost over $100,000 just by waiting to get started.
Just by waiting.
Sam has nearly double the money simply because she gave the snowball a head start to gather more surface area. You cannot beat time. Time is the ultimate leverage in finance.
Which is why the best time to start was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today. So if we understand the math and we understand that we need to start immediately, the practical question becomes, where do we actually park this money to let the engine run? This brings us to the core asset classes of stocks versus bonds, and a brilliantly simple framework from the USAA Educational Foundation called the timeline rule. It removes all the guesswork and bases your investment choices entirely on when you need to spend the cash.
Let's break that down. If your goal is short-term, meaning you need to pull the physical cash out in 0 to 3 years, say you are saving for a house deposit or a wedding, what do?
For a timeline of 0 to 3 years, you require maximum cash safety. You use high-yield savings accounts or short-term certificates of deposit. You absolutely cannot expose that money to the stock market.
Why not?
Because the market is volatile. You cannot risk a 30% macroeconomic crash right before you sign the papers to buy the house. You don't have the time to wait for the market to recover.
Okay, what if your timeline is intermediate? 4 to 6 years. Maybe saving for a child's college tuition when they were middle school?
For an intermediate timeline, you use a hybrid approach. You blend conservative bonds to provide stability with a small percentage of equities to try and outpace inflation. You are balancing risk and growth.
But if your goal is truly long-term, like 7 years, 10 years, or a full 40-year retirement horizon.
That is where you fully embrace the fluctuating risk of equities, the stock market. When your timeline is that long, daily or yearly volatility does not matter. You have the massive runway of time necessary to ride out the inevitable historical crashes, wait for the recovery, and capture the significantly higher historical rewards that stocks offer.
And while we are on the topic of asset classes, we must dismantle a pervasive myth regarding bonds. A lot of people view bonds as a completely risk-free vault, a guaranteed sure thing. But the sources are clear. Bonds are merely shock absorbers for a portfolio, and they carry hidden, complex risks that can quietly destroy your purchasing power.
It is vital to understand these hidden risks. Let's break them down, starting with interest rate risk. Let's say you buy a 10-year corporate bond that pays 4% interest. You feel great about it. But a year later, global inflation rises, and new bonds issued by that exact same company are now paying 6%. Suddenly, your 4% bond is a mathematically worse deal.
Right.
If you have an emergency and need to sell your bond early on the secondary market, no one is going to pay you full price for a 4% bond when they can buy a brand new 6% bond. You have to sell your asset at a steep discount just to convince a buyer to take it off your hands.
You lose principal.
Okay.
What is the second risk?
Second is inflation risk. This is the silent killer. Let's say you're locked into a very safe corporate bond earning 3% a year, but real-world inflation, the cost of groceries, gas, rent, spikes to 5%. Your money is technically growing on paper, the account balance is going up, but its actual purchasing power in the real world is actively shrinking. You are bleeding wealth invisibly because your money is growing slower than the cost of living.
The third one the sources mention is liquidity risk.
Yes. Liquidity refers to how fast you can turn an asset into spendable cash. If you own a share of Apple stock, you can sell it instantly during market hours with one click. But if you hold a highly specific niche corporate bond for a regional utility company and you suddenly need cash, there is absolutely no guarantee you will quickly find a buyer on the secondary market who wants that exact bond. You might be stuck with it or forced to accept a terrible price.
And the fourth risk is priority risk, which deals with what happens during corporate bankruptcies. If a company goes under, the investors fight over the scraps.
Exactly. You must understand the legal hierarchy of debt. When you buy a bond, you are lending money to a company. If they go bankrupt, senior bonds put you at the absolute front of the line to recover cash as the company liquidates its assets. Subordinated bonds, on the other hand, put you at the very back of the line, behind all the senior creditors.
And what happens if the money runs out?
If the money runs out before they get to you, which it usually does, you get absolutely nothing. That is exactly why subordinated bonds offer much higher interest rates up front to tempt you into taking that catastrophic back-of-the-line risk.
Okay, so to summarize the portfolio, bonds are the shock absorbers smoothing out the ride, and stocks are the massive sails actually catching the wind and driving you forward. But let's transition to part 8, because here is the ultimate, sobering truth of this entire deep dive. None of this flawless mathematical logic, none of this optimal asset allocation between stocks and bonds matters one single bit if you crash the car. Human psychology is the absolute biggest threat to your portfolio.
Behavioral economics has proven time and time again that successful investing isn't about outsmarting the global market, finding secret trends, or picking the right stock. It's almost entirely about managing your own primitive biological emotions. The sources present the tragedy of an investor named Dave as a masterclass in what not to do. Let's analyze Dave's 6 massive behavioral mistakes, because we all have a little bit of Dave inside us.
Let's look at Dave's terrible journey. Mistake 1. Failing to diversify. Dave goes to a neighborhood barbecue. His buddy, who sounds really confident, hypes up a revolutionary new biotech stock. Dave gets excited, logs into his brokerage, and dumps his entire life savings into that single company. He ties his entire financial existence to the decisions of one CEO. What should he have done?
He should have bought an ETF, an exchange-traded fund. An ETF is basically a financial variety pack. Instead of buying one stock, an ETF holds tiny fractional pieces of hundreds or even thousands of different companies across various sectors. If one company in the ETF goes bankrupt, you barely feel it because the other 499 companies are fine. Dave took on catastrophic, uncompensated risk for no reason.
And the inevitable happens. 2 weeks later, the biotech company reports terrible trial results, and the stock plummets 30% in a week. The financial news networks are screaming about a broader market crash. Dave panics, logs into his account, his heart is pounding, and he hits the sell button, pulling out whatever battered cash he has left. This is mistake 2, selling in a downturn. Why do we consistently do this?
We do it because we are fighting millions of years of evolutionary biology. It's a concept called loss aversion. Humans are biologically wired to feel the psychological pain of a loss roughly twice as intensely as we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain. In our hunter-gatherer days, losing a meal meant literal starvation. We are wired to panic and flee to survive. But in modern finance, panic selling just permanently locks in what was only a temporary mathematical loss on a screen.
He turned a paper loss into a real permanent loss.
Exactly. And by selling in a panic, Dave reveals mistake 3, ignoring his risk tolerance. He invested way too aggressively for what his emotional stomach could actually handle. He thought he could handle volatility, but the moment it dropped, he folded.
So Dave is burned. He's angry at the market. He decides he will only invest again if he has leftover money at the end of the year. This is mistake 4. Relying on leftover money guarantees you will never invest. Why? Because, as we discussed with lifestyle creep, life always finds a way to consume leftover capital. The roof will leak, the car will break down, or you'll take a vacation. You have to pay your investments first, not last.
So time passes. Eventually, Dave gets antsy. He sees a meme stock rocketing up on social media, fueled by rocket ship emojis and hype. FOMO, the fear of misses out, takes over. He dumps money into it without looking at the company's debt, its leadership, or its actual revenue. That is mistake 5, total lack of fundamental research. He is gambling, not investing.
And finally, mistake 6, the ultimate sin, market timing. Dave realizes the meme stock was a bad idea. He pulls his money out again. He decides he is much smarter now. He will wait in cash, watching the news closely, waiting for the exact moment the market hits rock bottom before buying back in. He wants to buy at the absolute lowest point.
But trying to time the market is mathematically destructive and virtually impossible. The market's absolute biggest, most explosive days of massive growth usually occur highly concentrated in just a few random days. And counterintuitively, those best days almost always happen immediately following massive, terrifying market drops when volatility is highest.
The sources drop a staggering statistic here. If you are sitting in cash, trying to be smart, waiting for the perfect moment, and you miss Just the 10 single best performing days in the market over an entire decade, your overall wealth can be cut entirely in half compared to someone who just invested their money and went to sleep. Think about that. Missing 10 days out of 3,650 days halves your wealth.
It proves that time in the market beats timing the market every single time, which is why the sources champion a strategy called dollar cost averaging, or DCA, as the ultimate solution to all 6 of Dave's mistakes. DCA completely bypasses our flawed evolutionary biology.
How does it work?
You commit to investing a fixed dollar amount, say $200, every single month, automatically, regardless of what the news is saying. When the market crashes and everyone is panicking, prices are low. So your fixed $200 automatically buys more shares. You are buying them on sale. When the market is booming and expensive, your $200 naturally buys fewer shares, preventing you from overcommitting capital at the top of a bubble. It turns terrifying market crashes into automated discount shopping sprees, and it requires absolutely no emotional courage from you to execute.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the stock market is so psychologically dangerous, if it's full of volatility, and our own brains are wired to make mistakes, why wouldn't a listener just say, forget this, take all their cash and put it in a fireproof safe under their bed? Why take the risk of investing at all?
Because of the silent, invisible killer of wealth we talked about earlier, inflation. If you leave your money in a safe under the bed, playing it safe is actually a mathematical guarantee that you will lose purchasing power. A $100 bill locked in a safe today will buy significantly fewer groceries 10 years from now. The absolute biggest financial risk you can possibly take in your life is choosing not to invest, allowing inflation to invisibly and consistently compound against your stagnant savings until you are broke.
So, we've covered the entire ladder, from stopping leaks to building buffers, killing debt, validating side hustles, and investing the profits. Now we have to move from theory to actual practice with Part 9, the 30-Day Money Growth Challenge. We want you, the listener, to stop analyzing, stop researching, and start acting today. The sources break this down into a highly specific rolling timeline to build momentum.
The challenge is designed to prevent overwhelm. Days 1 through 3 are purely defensive. You don't build anything yet. You simply conduct the 24-hour reset, track every single leak, and boldly cancel 3 unnecessary expenses. Just 3.
Get some quick wins. Then, days 4 through 7 are for targeting. You set a specific, aggressive target. Maybe it's paying off that one specific high-interest credit card or setting a specific dollar amount for your self-insurance buffer. You define the goalpost.
Days 8 through 10, you pivot to income generation. This is the internal audit. You sit down with a blank piece of paper and list 10 specific skills, hobbies, or professional experiences you possess that you could potentially offer as a service. Don't filter yourself yet, just get them on paper.
Days 11 through 14, you turn outward. You stop looking at your skills and start looking at the market. You identify one specific, painful problem that a real business or person in your local network has. What is frustrating them?
Days 15 through 20 require courage. This is where most people quit. You must cold contact 10 potential customers with a simple, clear offer to solve that specific problem. No complex websites, just a direct message or an email.
Days 21 through 25, you focus on execution. You deliver a small, tangible result or a free sample to one of those contacts to build trust and prove your absolute competence. You show them you can actually do the work.
And finally, days 26 through 30. The hardest part. You ask for the first paid dollar, you close the deal. And the very moment that new money hits your account, you do not celebrate by going out to a fancy dinner. You immediately use the split system to divide it into your stability and growth buckets before lifestyle creep can even touch it.
But as you embark on this 30-day challenge, and as you spend the next decade climbing this entire money growth ladder, you are going to face setbacks. And you must embrace the core philosophical tenet of the growth vault: return faster. I love this concept.
It is essential for long-term success. Financial perfection is a toxic, paralyzing myth. You are a human being. You are going to slip up. You will have a terrible week and blow your budget on a Wednesday night on useless takeout. You might succumb to fear and pause your investments during a particularly terrifying news cycle.
When that happens, and it will happen, do not burn the whole system down. Do not throw the sweater in the fireplace just because you dropped one single stitch. The Return Faster philosophy says you simply must learn to forgive yourself immediately, pick up the needle, and return to your baseline habits the very next morning. Resilience, the ability to bounce back from a bad decision quickly, beats financial perfection every single time.
It all comes together to form a complete holistic ecosystem of financial control. You plug the leak so you aren't bleeding. You build the defensive shield of self-insurance. You starve the reverse compounding debt. You manufacture brand new income through smart skill monetization and drop servicing. And finally, you feed that new surplus directly into a mechanical, emotionless compounding engine that works while you sleep.
As we wrap up this massive, comprehensive journey today, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we've discussed. I want you to imagine the mathematical singularity.
The absolute tipping point of the wealth journey.
Exactly. I want you to imagine what happens to your daily life, to your identity, and to your entire reality the exact moment the automated systems you've spent years building, the quiet, relentless compounding of your ETFs, the managed arbitrage of your drop servicing business, finally cross the mathematical threshold and begin out-earning the physical, grinding labor of your own two hands.
It is a profound, life-altering question. Who do you actually become when sheer survival, when paying a rent, is no longer the primary, all-consuming objective of your day? When you reclaim your time from the market, the entire world opens up. You can choose to work, or choose to build, or choose to rest.
It changes absolutely everything about how you experience life. So your final mission today, the moment this deep dive ends, is simple. Take just one single action. Cancel one invisible leak, log into your bank and set up one automated $20 transfer, or send one message offering your skills to a local business. Prove to yourself today that you are finally in the driver's seat. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the money growth ladder.